Hi, have you ever wondered about the power of faith? There's a great passage in Mark's Gospel and chapter 5. And when Jesus had passed over again by ship into the other side, many people gathered around him, and he was nigh and near the sea. And behold, there cometh unto him one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet. This is one of the amazing stories in Mark's Gospel. And it's full of action, it's full of drama, it's full of the amazing things that Jesus did while here on earth. And this is a particular story. Jesus has been doing a whole host of miracles, healing people, delivering people, setting people free. And now he crossed over the lakeside and he come, and a whole group of people, a whole vast master of people had heard about him and come across to find where he was, to see where he was, to gather around him, to listen to him. And this man Jairus was a religious leader. He was one of the rulers of the synagogue. He was a man of dignity, a man of respect, a man of honor, a man of power, a man of authority. But he had a need. He had a desperate need. And that need was his little girl was lying. And she was dying. She was in sick bed. And he said to her, Jesus, 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 please come and touch my little girl, and she will be healed, and she will be made whole, and she will live. Now, Jairus is an amazing character, because he was this religious leader. He was one of the Jews, and the Jews were steeped in the Old Testament laws, the regulations. And many of the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the religious leaders, were against Jesus. But Jairus had a need, and his need was a personal need. And he had heard of Jesus. He had heard the things that Jesus had done. He had heard all the amazing things that Jesus did. And he came up to Jesus and he said, Jesus, I believe that if you could just come and touch my little girl, she will be healed and she will live. Jairus was astonished when Jesus said, yes, I will come. And they turned around and began to go towards Jairus and said, I want you to imagine something. There's a whole group of people. It's not just Jairus and Jesus and disciples. There's hundreds of people there. And they turned around and began to go towards Jairus' house. And they're gathering around, they're pushing around, they're jostling around, and people touching Jesus, all sorts of things. But as they were going, there was another lady. It says here in Mark chapter 5. And a certain woman who had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. But she had heard of Jesus, come in, pressed behind him, and touched his garments. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. This is a woman who suffered 12 years with an issue of blood. And she spent all her money trying to get better. She talked to many doctors and gone to many different physicians and tried many treatments, etc. But none of them made her any better. In fact, they made her worse. But she had heard. She had heard of Jesus. She had heard the amazing things that Jesus had been doing. Now, because she had an issue of blood, she was not actually allowed out of the home. She was not allowed to the synagogue. She was not allowed to go to the marketplace. She was not allowed to go and mix with friends very often. Even she had to wash the clothes she used every day. She had to wash her bed linen every day. She had to wash the seat she sat on every day. That was the Jewish Leviticus law. But she said, I believe in my heart that if only I can touch his clothes, the hem of his garments, I will be healed. And she kept saying that because she heard of all the amazing things Jesus did. And that grew up inside her. The faith grew up. She kept saying, if only I can touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. And she heard that Jesus was coming. So she got herself ready, made herself disguise, and went out in the crowd. And she wept her way through the crowd. She bowed low and got through them. And she touched the hem of his garment. And she kept saying, if only I could touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. And instantly, she touched the hem of his garment. It says here, look, it says, and straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. She felt it. She's an instant recognition that something dynamic had happened within her, and she knew she'd be healed. And Jesus also, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, and turned around himself in the press and said, "Who touched my clothes?" Now, interestingly, he didn't say, "Who touched me?" She said, "Who touched my clothes?" There's lots of people touching him. But the woman had said, "If only I could touch his garment, I will be healed." She said in verse 38, "If I may touch but his clothes, I will be healed. I'll be whole." And Jesus said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples turned around and said, "For goodness sake, Jesus, everyone's touching your clothes. There's a whole crowd of people here. All sorts of people touching your clothes." But Jesus said, "No." And he turned around and looked around the crowd, because he knew a certain person had come that day to touch him, believing. And the woman came, knelt at his feet, and told him all that had happened. And Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be whole of the plague." Jesus said, "Woman, the statements you've been making, if I only touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed, are statements of faith. And you've touched the hem of my garment, and because you kept believing, you are healed in the name of Jesus." Now, I hope that's helped you, perhaps to strengthen your own faith. Let's just pray. Father, I ask you to strengthen our individual faith, that we might believe in the power of Jesus to heal. Thank you. Amen. God bless you.